Next on the news, from discussing saints to electing a new president and revealing details about the Eucharistic Congress, the biggest takeaways from the Bishops' Conference in Baltimore.
For me, the hours come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect.
Nancy Pelosi making a big announcement following news that her party lost control of the House. Pope Francis is planning a family trip in Italy, a closer look at his family ties.
It's a little more modest than Michelin's star. I'm Jessica Easthope with the Rectory Cook, who brings classic training and Christ in his heart to every meal.
And it's a time for giving. The tablet needs your help to make Christmas bright for those less fortunate. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. U.S. bishops had a day of closed-door meetings in Baltimore Thursday and are now heading back to their dioceses. It was a busy week where some headlines were made. Here's a recap. The bishops elected a new president and vice president. They helped 3 American women get one step closer to sainthood. They unveiled some new plans for a pilgrimage to the Eucharistic Congress. And in this midterm election year, the bishops discussed how they can guide Catholics when they hit the polls.
Welcome, brothers.
Just like the rest of the country, elections seem to take center stage at the USCCB's Fall General Assembly. The bishops discussed how to help Catholics vote with their conscience, but they didn't make any major changes to their faithful citizenship document.
All right, so Archbishop Timothy Broglio is the new president.
They did, however, make changes to their leadership. The bishops elected Archbishop Timothy Broglio from the U.S. Archdiocese for the Military Services as their new president. Afterwards, Broglio said while he doesn't see his role as a political one, he does look forward to meeting with political leaders in the U.S.
If there is any way to insert the gospel into all aspects of life in our country, I certainly will not miss any occasion to do that.
Here's an occasion you won't want to miss. The USCCB is planning a pilgrimage to the National Eucharistic Congress in Indianapolis in July of 2024. It's the culmination of the Eucharistic Revival, launched earlier this year to raise awareness of the real presence in the communion.
What is the heart of this movement, which is a movement that we seek to invite people to a transforming encounter with Jesus in the Eucharist so that they might be healed, formed, unified, and sent on mission. This is really what we're all about.
They were so impressed with the missions of 3 American women that the bishops voted to advance their causes for sainthood. We also heard from outgoing President Archbishop Jose Gomez of Los Angeles, who talked about the unity of the bishops during some tumultuous times of his tenure, the pandemic, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and a worldwide refugee crisis.
Through it all, dear brothers, I've been inspired by your faithfulness, by your love for Jesus Christ and our people, and by your fraternity and fellowship as we seek to carry out our Lord's calling.
Going back to the Eucharistic Congress in 2024, 80,000 Catholics are expected to attend, and registration will open next spring. National correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, John Lavenberg, has been with the bishops all week. He's just back from Baltimore and joins us now. Hi, John.
Hi, Christine.
So glad to have you back here. Thanks for all your work you've been doing. So they really have big plans for this Eucharistic Congress, a pilgrimage starting in 4 different areas of the country and ending at the big event in Indiana. But it's not the first time that a Congress like this has been held, right?
It's not, and that's something that was really fascinating when Bishop Cousins says it, because I didn't know it either. But the first one was 1926, and so from 1926 to 1976, they had 9 of them. And now they're having the 10th, and that's part of the reason why this is so big and grand, because though it's the 10th, it's been 50 years. It's been a long time since they have had one in the U.S.
Yeah, sure. That's why a lot of us don't remember them at all. The bishops also took a look at their voting guide for Catholics, the document Faithful Citizenship. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, emeritus of the Diocese of Brooklyn, shared his opinions. Let's listen to what he had to say.
It's so important that we understand a new political phenomenon in our own country, the division. And if we don't speak to that, I don't think we're going to get anybody's attention, and we're not going to form their conscience.
So they didn't make any big changes. What's next?
They didn't, and it's important to note that what Bishop DiMarzio said, that was a sentiment issued by a number of bishops that got up and spoke. But in the end, what they voted to do was essentially they're going to reissue the document as is, and they're going to add an introductory insert to it that talks about Pope Francis's most recent teachings and policy changes that may have taken place in the U.S. And they'll issue that ahead of the 2024 election, and then after the election, they said they're going to re-examine the document as a whole, and that's when we could see the potential for wholesale changes to what we have before us in this document.
All right, so that gives them a little time. This was exciting. 3 American women are one step closer to sainthood after the bishops advanced their causes. Some of them shared personal testimony at this time, right?
Yeah, and it was one of the brightest spots of the entire conference because, you know, the bishop of the diocese that's bringing forward the cause goes up and they present the cause, and just naturally, you know, one person gets up and they say, this person meant so much to me becoming a priest, me taking this vocation. And it kind of got the ball rolling for each one of them, a number of bishops got up and spoke and talked about how important these 3 women were to their own priesthood and to the Catholic Church. So it was just a beautiful thing, and each one got a roaring, you know, not a roaring ovation, but they all got a big vocal approval. Overwhelming majority wanted these causes to continue.
Oh, that's really nice. And now, even though you're back, the conference continued today behind closed doors. Why do the bishops have private meetings?
You know, it's something they really started doing last year on Monday. They have that first day where they meet together, they pray, they reflect, and that's where they talk about a lot of these things, meet in small dialogue, small groups, and that's where a lot of bishops, you know, some of them told me a lot of them are more comfortable in that setting, talking about issues and getting things done. So they have another day at the end this year to talk about those things in private, and I imagine they'll be doing a lot of the same in a synodal manner, if you will, as we're doing all around the country, talking together.
The round tables.
Exactly, the round tables, yep, sitting together and talking in a way where they're facing each other to really get to the heart of what needs to be done to better move forward the church in the U.S.
All right, sounds like an exciting week. John Lavenberg, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, thanks so much for your reporting this week.
Thank you, Christine.
To find out more about the sainthood causes of Mother Margaret Mary Healy Murphy, Cora Evans, and Michelle Dupont, go to thetablet.org. You can also read other articles on all the topics covered this week in Baltimore. We have a winner. The path to 218 cleared and the House flipped. Republicans won control on Wednesday after a week of counting outstanding ballots. And it was a close one, 211 to 218, much closer than party leaders would have liked. Still, it gives the party some power to check President Biden and congressional Democrats. But Nancy Pelosi won't be there, at least not as Speaker. She stepped down today.
Have you made a decision?
The decision is in, and it ends her 19-year run as the head of the Democratic caucus. Pelosi will not seek re-election as leader of the House. She's going to stay in Congress, though, to steward Democrats while the party adjusts to minority status.
For everything, there is a season. With great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress.
Pelosi promised to stay on as a member of the House, speaking for the people of San Francisco. Just because Pelosi won't be in the driver's seat doesn't mean Democrats are going to stall. Amy Kiley tells us they're going into overdrive instead, trying to get priorities done before the power switch.
The affirmative, the motion is agreed to.
Democrats are projected to lose control of the House next year, and they're rushing to approve legislation before then. The Senate could vote on a bill protecting marriage equality as soon as this week. 12 Republicans helped it get past a procedural hurdle. That's enough to beat a filibuster.
This legislation just says that the status which is conveyed by one state has to be recognized by another. At the same time, this legislation provides important religious liberty protections.
Advocates want the House to pass the Senate version of the bill this year. That's before apparent incoming Speaker Kevin McCarthy takes control of the chamber's agenda. Some Democrats say they feel similar pressure to secure funding for Ukraine.
I feel very strongly that the Republican Party is overwhelmingly in support of defending Ukraine. Future Speaker McCarthy, if that comes to pass, will he bow to these small number of voices?
Two-party control of Congress has been known to cause gridlock, but bipartisanship is always possible.
I hope that they stand for their beliefs, but they continue to engage with Democrats when they think we can get something done that's good for the country.
We have got to keep this march toward a more perfect union.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
And what about Senate leadership? It'll remain the same. Republican lawmakers voted yesterday to keep Mitch McConnell. A federal judge is giving the Biden administration 5 more weeks to wrap up Title 42. The policy allowed border officials to immediately remove migrants in order to prevent the spread of COVID. The December 21st deadline gives the administration time to wind the policy down. Law enforcement officials and immigration experts are warning that lifting Title 42 could cause up to 18,000 migrants to cross the border each day. Students at the University of Virginia are returning to class following the shooting deaths of 3 football players. While normal schedules resumed Wednesday, undergraduate students will not be required to complete assignments or take exams prior to next week's Thanksgiving break. Makeshift memorials with cards, candles, and flowers are sprinkled across campus to honor the players tragically shot and killed on Sunday.
I think part of me was expecting, are people going to try to just pretend like nothing happened? And, I think that's the complete opposite. I think people wanted to reflect, wanted to talk about this. It's a shared, trauma that we have.
And just like seeing people on grounds, you can just feel like how different it is. There's definitely, everyone's feeling the loss. And yeah, you can just see it around grounds.
The university will hold an on-campus memorial on Saturday. The man who drove his car through a Christmas parade last year in Wisconsin was sentenced. Darrell Brooks will spend the rest of his life behind bars. A judge sentenced him to 6 consecutive life sentences, plus an additional 700 years in prison on endangerment counts. Last month, Brooks was found guilty on 76 counts for intentionally driving into a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin in 2021. 6 people were killed, dozens more injured. Brooks will appeal his conviction. A break in the case of a subway employee attacked in Manhattan. Police arrested Jonathan Frias after he was spotted on an E-train at the World Trade Center station. Frias is homeless and accused of attacking a subway worker on the E-train platform at Chambers Street with a pipe last Wednesday. He's been charged with assault. Up next, the rectory chef who says whipping up meals is a calling.
With recipes like these, Michael Edmonds is spicing up the lives of the Brothers of the Sacred Heart. I'm Jessica Easthope. His story and culinary secrets are up next.
The students at St Edmund Prep are getting a big boost for their STEAM program. And Pope Francis's native country is Argentina, but his family roots trace back to Italy. We'll have more on that ahead.
And now, a chef in the kitchen and a man of faith.
This is the fun part of my faith.
Now he's combining the two.
It comes from my heart.
And serving the church.
He was once one of New York City's youngest executive chefs and a private chef, cooking for the likes of Vera Wang, Calvin Klein, Chris Rock, and Princess Margaret, to name a few. Now Michael Edmonds cooks for the Brothers of the Sacred Heart. Current News' Jessica Easthope has his story.
Julia Child always says, when in doubt, add butter.
You can acquire a lot of secret ingredients over 40 years as a professional chef. Michael Edmonds says his favorite one is no longer a secret. His faith is part of every meal he makes.
My faith is very, very strong. If anything, this is the fun part of my faith because this gives me the opportunity to give back.
Michael's owned his own restaurant, cooked for celebrities and royalty. But these days, he finds himself in a very different kind of kitchen.
This fabulous life, what are you doing here? This is part 2 of that fabulous life to me.
Brothers! Now he cooks full-time for the Brothers of the Sacred Heart at St Stanislaus Kostka Church in Maspeth, where he's worked for 5 years.
It's nothing fancy. They live simply. It's very easy to take a chicken breast and make it into something spectacular. You see, you eat with your eyes before you eat with your mouth.
Michael can barely remember all the big names he's cooked for, but technique he can never forget. He whips up meals on a modest budget. He says that's when his training kicks in. And the brothers seem to love it. But more than that, they love Michael.
Michael, first of all, is a tremendous person. I know he's a great cook, a good chef, but over and above that, he's just a good person to be around.
And when he's at the stove, he's at home.
Food is my expression, because to me, food is love.
And serving something greater than himself.
They just never stop. They're always doing for someone. And then come 5 o'clock, they sit down and they have a meal. I want that to be the best meal that they have.
It's a world away from the meticulous menus at the fast-paced Michelin star kitchens Michael was once used to. But just like a perfect recipe, he's found life is all about balance.
Expressing myself and great reviews. I've done all that. I've had all that. It's not personal, but this is just right.
Michael's going to continue to think up new and exciting ways to feed the brothers, and in the meantime, like all professional chefs, he's looking forward to eating someone else's food on Thanksgiving. In Maspeth, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
You can help the residents of a Queens senior home have a happy one, thanks to a food drive being held this weekend. The Little Sisters of the Poor, along with some volunteers, are collecting donations of turkeys and hams. The food will be served on Thanksgiving Day to those who live at Queen of Peace residence. Any leftovers will be used for future meals. If you'd like to help, just bring your turkeys and hams to Queen of Peace residence. That's located at 11030 221st Street in Queens Village. They'll greet you at the curb this Saturday, November 19th, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. A generous $100,000 donation to St Edmund Prep has started a new STEAM program. Standing for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math, the program will provide hands-on learning with real-world applications. The high school also dedicated a new innovation center, which includes 3D printers, laser engravers, and other technologies. Students will start their STEAM classes next school year, but until then, the school will utilize the new center for STEAM-related programs and clubs. The staff at the tablet is hard at work accepting donations and awarding funds to parishes and Catholic ministries in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Bright Christmas Fund's mission is to ensure a Merry Christmas for children and families in need. Recipients of the funds use the donations to run their Christmas initiatives. Readers of the tablet contributed $117,000 last year. The goal this year is to raise $125,000. The need is greater this year for families fighting inflation, but you can help. Here's how. You can make a check out to the Bright Christmas Fund and mail it to Bright Christmas LB number 2118, P.O. Box 95,000, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the zip code 19195. Or you can make your donation online at thetablet.org/brightchristmas. We'll give out this information again at the end of this newscast. Also in the news, Pope Francis will soon be spending some time with family, heading to the city of Asti this weekend to celebrate his cousin's birthday. The Holy Father has a few family ties to the northern Italian town. Ahead of his trip, Andy Madison gives us a look inside the family tree of Jorge Bergoglio.
This weekend, Pope Francis will travel to Asti in northern Italy to celebrate his cousin's 90th birthday. His family's roots go back to the Piedmont region. His father lived there before migrating from Italy to Argentina in 1929.
Anch'io sono nato in una famiglia di migranti. Mio papà, I miei nonni, come tanti altri italiani, sono partiti per l'Argentina e hanno conosciuto la sorte di chi resta senza nulla.
Pope Francis's mother, Regina Maria Savori, was born in Buenos Aires, but her parents also migrated to Argentina from northern Italy. The Pope's family ties to immigration have influenced his papacy.
Ritengo molto importante che nel mondo di oggi I migranti diventino testimoni dei valori umani essenziali per una vita dignitosa e fraterna. Sono valori che voi portate dentro, che appartengono alle vostre radici.
While the Pope is from Argentina, he has not visited his native country since becoming Pope. He says he speaks frequently with his sister, Maria Elena, who lives there, and is up to date on the lives of his nephews. Since his election as Pope, Francis has maintained contact with his Italian relatives. He even got to meet with 6 of his cousins and their families during a trip to Turin in 2015. While in Asti, the Pope will hold a private meeting with his family members. The next day, he will then hold a public mass at Asti Cathedral for the Solemnity of Christ the King. Andy Madison, Currents News.
Pope Francis did visit Asti frequently as an archbishop and cardinal. Still to come on Currents News, former Tonight Show host Jay Leno is recovering from being badly burned. His doctor is giving us an update on his condition. And the results of an Alzheimer's drug trial are in. Details when we return. Doctors say former Tonight Show host Jay Leno is on the long road to recovery after being badly burned. The comedian underwent skin graft surgery on his face and hands at the Grossman Burn Center in Los Angeles. Leno was working on one of his antique cars when he was sprayed with gasoline and it then ignited.
Burns progress. We've been watching these. Some of the burns to the face are a little bit deeper and a little bit more concerning. Right now they're in that progression of somewhere between deep second and third-degree burns to the face.
Grossman says he believes Leno will make a full recovery. The comedian is walking around the hospital cracking jokes. He's expected to undergo another procedure later this week. In health news, an experimental treatment for Alzheimer's disease has shown disappointing results in clinical trials. Mandy Gaither has more on the drug's failures and why some Alzheimer's experts say the data may also bring some good.
In the fight against Alzheimer's disease, it was a promising new drug, but gantenerumab failed to help people at high risk of memory loss from Alzheimer's or those who were in the early stages of the disease, according to data from clinical trials.
We are disappointed, just like I know that families would be.
Gantenerumab is part of a class of injected drugs designed to remove sticky protein pieces called beta amyloid from the brain. A buildup of those pieces is a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. The drug company says this particular drug appeared to remove less of the protein pieces than expected. Clinical trials showed it didn't significantly improve brain function and memory. The company says based on these results, all studies with this drug will be stopped.
I think there is a silver lining. The drug didn't meet its primary endpoint, and that is disappointing. But it did actually help us understand more about this particular strategy.
And there's still hope for that beta amyloid removal strategy. Maria Carrillo with the Alzheimer's Association says this drug just didn't remove enough to get significant benefit in patients. Right now, there are other beta amyloid reducing drugs being tested.
This is an incredibly exciting time for this particular strategy, but there are so many other strategies coming up right behind it.
I'm Mandy Gaither.
And now good news when it comes to births. Levels in 2021 were the highest they've been in 30 years. According to a new CDC report, more than 50,000 babies were born at home last year, a number that has been steadily increasing since 2019. 21% of Black women made up that number compared to 15% of Hispanic women and 10% of white women. And Christians will soon be celebrating another birth. Christmas has arrived at the Vatican. The 100-foot fir was delivered to St. Peter's Square. The tree comes from the central Italian town of Palena. The lighting ceremony is scheduled for December 3rd, and accompanying the tree will be a hand-carved wooden nativity scene from a town near Venice. Now that makes me happy. And earlier in the newscast, we told you about the launch of the Tablet's Bright Christmas campaign, the program which began making Christmas brighter for the less fortunate children of the diocese in the 1960s needs your help. Just make a check out to the Bright Christmas Fund and mail it to Bright Christmas, LB number 2118, P.O. Box 95,000, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, zip code 19195. Or you can make your donation online with PayPal or a credit card at thetablet.org/brightchristmas. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.